Can you hear me all right? Okay. Let's do like a really quick poll. Who's here is a Montclair State student? Nice. Red Hawks in the house. Meetup scene, people? All right, there's my peeps. Media, where's our media? Esther, yes. What happened to Natalie? Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. All right, Natalie too. Thank you, guys. So this is why we're here tonight, Solve for X. So what that's all about, I'm not going to tell you quite yet because there's one thing I have to do first. Thank you. There are approximately this many people that I have to thank, and the technical term for that is 11 billion and one. So, yes, I'm going to jump into that in a minute. So, Google first, thank you for arranging an amazing program. They support GDG, the Google Developer Groups, amazingly well. It's just an unbelievably well-run program. I think everybody knows Google. If you don't, you probably shouldn't be here. I might actually ask you to leave right now if you don't. So, the Grommet, awesome company. They're kind of like Etsy for makers. That's my words. Don't quote me on that. They're up in Boston. They're actually going to be the host for our Boston event. Rutgers, it's where our main event is being held. Scarlet Startups, this is this guy's group over here, Clark, thank you. Launch NJ, partner, Montclair State University, obviously. And Videotek is where our website came from. More on that in a minute. I'm Todd. I am Todd Nakamura. So I'm the founder of GDG North Jersey. McCarter in English, thank you very much. Our first sponsor, we had these guys on board from way early. It was such a boost for for everything we're doing. You obviously need sponsors for events like this. I'm actually going to call up Susan Goldsmith here for a minute. She's going to say a word. She's one of the partners.
Thanks for pizza, Susan.
Yes.
Thanks for buying dinner for 100 people tonight.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, we're responsible for the pizza and the soda, sort of. Hope it was good. Yes, I'm Susan Goldsmith from McCarter in English. I'm a partner in the Emerging Growth and Venture Capital Practice Group, specifically in IP and IT. I was really hoping that one of the proposals here tonight would be somebody who can solve our traffic problem. Maybe the gravity thing, right? So I want to hear about that. I'm really excited about this program. McCarter in English is the oldest law firm in New Jersey, still going strong after 170 years. Kind of think of it as Yoda, old and wise. And apparently willing to buy pizza even now. We are really excited about this. We are very committed to New Jersey and the Northeast in general. We're a regional law firm with very strong practice areas. If you have one of these ideas, we really want to help you patent it, help you get a trademark for it, help you get money to fund your development, and move on to huge things. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to sponsor this.
Thank you so much, Susan. Also, Juniper Networks. These guys are really good. They support the local scene very well. They just came on board as a sponsor. They're not here tonight, but they will have a strong presence at our Google NYC event and also at the main event. So thank you very much for that too. Jerry Passione runs a nice. It's called the Open Lab down in Bridgewater. Yes, our team here. I owe an amazing debt of gratitude to these people. It's not a reasonable ask that I ask of them. I mean, they've all put hundreds of hours in at this point. But I couldn't ask for a better team. I definitely did not go wrong. So that's me over there. Clark, again, you hear more from him. Scarlet Startups. Jackie Melillo, she's at Rutgers, and she's with the NJ Big Data Alliance right here. Thank you, Jackie. Sylvia Wandawa, she's a co-organizer of GDG North Jersey. She also runs the GDG Women Group. She's sitting over there. Carlos Abad, he's the founder of Launch J. He's like one of the godfathers of the just entrepreneurial communities in North Jersey, and he's on the team. Pam is from the Grommet, so she's going to really come into play when we go up to the Boston area. And Katie is the awesome person who we brought on late, and she designed the website. So if you guys saw the website, that was totally her work. I had my MVP out there, and I mean minimum viable product by that, not, and it was functional, but she came out and completely blew away my design. So thank you, Katie. She's not here tonight. Yes, so this is what it's all about. So Solve for X is coming to town. And what is Solve for X all about? So it's really about moonshot thinking, right? What is a moonshot? So it's this intersection of huge problem, radical solution, and breakthrough technology. So you're going to find a problem in the world that needs solving, something that affects millions or billions of people. Energy, food crisis, whatever it might be. So it's a huge problem that you address with a radical solution, and with that radical solution, you use some kind of breakthrough technology. So that's what an ideal moonshot is all about. Hopefully, I think we have a couple of them here tonight. So we're excited to hear from these people right over here. We have our pioneer. This is Pioneer Row over here. This is a cool slide. So this is how it all started for me. So I got, I applied for Solve for X for my group. So for all, just a little background information. So this year is the first time that Google opened up this program for other partner groups. In the past, they've held their own Solve for X events out in California. They had 2 of them. So this year is the very first year they opened it up. So I applied, and we got accepted. And we are one of 12 in the world. So I've never been on a list like this before of China, Uganda, Indonesia, Todd Nakamura. Like, it's a little ridiculous. So there's one other group in the U.S., the MIT Alumni Club. Funny enough, they're actually out in California. So we base, our jurisdiction for moonshots is basically the eastern half of the United States. So that's the area that we're canvassing, looking for talent. Yeah, funny enough. Don't ask me why, but that's, I don't know. That's what happened. Yeah, so that's who's hosting these events. I forget exactly when the very first main event kicks off. You might be able to find that out. I'm not positive. What's your X? Yes. Okay. So this is a movement that we are trying to get started. So in advance of our event, one challenge we're up against is raising awareness of what is Solve for X, what is a moonshot, what is all this stuff. Everybody knows Google, but not all that many people know Solve for X. So we are trying to get the word out. So this is one campaign we came up with. It's called What's Your X? And the whole concept is you go and you take a picture like this. You take your X photo. Some of you might have taken one tonight. And you post this all over social media. So honestly, ideally, it works best on Google Plus and Twitter. More Google Plus, actually, to be honest. That's not just me as a Google guy, but it really is the best platform for it because it's open. You don't have to, like Facebook, they have to be your friend for you to see it, whatever. So it really is the best platform. You take a photo like this and you post what your X is. Like, okay, I know a problem that needs solving. Come help me solve it. And challenge your friends to do the same thing. And put it up there and go hashtag What's Your X? So what we have here kicking this off, that's Nicholas Kamanzi. He's actually from Uganda. So we have a little buzz going over in Uganda. He's the host of the Uganda event. That's Sylvia there. This is a aspiring pioneer, Chris Kitchen. So thank you, Chris, for doing that. That was a pretty awesome X, and that's me over there. So this is something I did not tell any of the pioneers. Sorry to spring this on you. The format of the event tonight will be 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. No, I'm totally joking, totally joking. No, that's absolutely not what we're doing. Total joke. I'm actually going to call up Clark to talk to you about the rest, what we're going to be doing, the mechanics, and get this thing going.
That guy, by the way. Jesus. Yeah, I am the same
So
guy.
Clark Lagerman.
Crazy. Thank you. I'm excited to.
We need your presentation.
Nothing. Yeah, so basically the format tonight is 8 minutes for the pioneers. We have some amazing, brilliant people, and 5 minutes of Q&A. Before we bring up the pioneers and you guys still remark on why this guy with this beautiful face has a beard like this, we'll leave it for afterwards. But I'm usually most impressed by our panelists at most of these events. I host tons of meetups, and I think this is the first day and one of the first events I'm more impressed by who's presenting than our panelists. So I got to commend the pioneers. First off, very brilliant group of people. But not to say anything against this esteemed panel up here, the four talented individuals, but really have a very impressive group of pioneers. But the game plan for tonight is 8 minutes for our pioneers, and the panelists will give 5 minutes of Q&A. And going from my right to left, we start with John Frankel, who is one of the founding partners of FF Ventures. I think it's, 19 years or 20 plus years of 30 plus years of investing now with early stage. It just keeps going on and on. Very influential in the early stage startup scene, has amazing exits, and very involved with what's happening in the entrepreneurial world in both New York and New Jersey. 30 years, was I right? Anywhere in that range? Somewhere around there, but very talented. To his right, my left, Dennis Pone, formerly a CEO of Verizon, New Jersey. And now he's like the godfather of everything you see here at Montclair State. So kiss his ring when you walk by him. But he's now the chairman, leader of the Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship. He has a ring, so I don't. The ladies behind you, maybe, I don't know. But thank you again for hosting us tonight, and thank you for your commitment to entrepreneurship. You heard about Susan already, her firm, McCarter English, fantastic. Personally, I've known her for many years. She doesn't charge me when I call her for questions, which is awesome. But really passionate about helping entrepreneurs, really involved in the startup scene. So I'm proud to have her as well, and so thank you for your help and your support. And we have the last one, who I met about 3 minutes ago or so. So we go way back. But he has COO of Merlin Organics. Perfect, my notes are helping me. But his background is very interesting. 20 years of a variety of experiences, everything from involvement in film and technology and media. So I think what's really interesting about your background is bringing like the Swiss Army blade of what's happening out there in the world. So thank you again for joining us. So for the 4 panelists, thank you again. We appreciate it. So I think with that, Todd, you want to get maybe our first presenter up? You want to get the slides ready for them? That would be helpful. So our first presenter we have is Olive Lynch. What's great about Olive, she has a very eclectic background. Everything from being an opera singer, I kid you not, this is not what the Moonshot's about, but she also has 10 plus years of consulting and IT banking experience, which is really great, and degrees from both Johns Hopkins and from the Curtis Institute of Music. Olive, is that correct? So I would love to have her for Trivial Pursuit as my partner, because wide range, but we're proud to have her. And also she's owned and managed a horse farm for 10 years, which will kind of bring her to her moonshot. So Olive, thank you for your time, and we're excited to hear what you have to say.
Hi, can you hear me?
You'll have to do the, don't advance it because she's going to advance it there.
Well, hi, I'm Olive
Slides right after this, or we can pull each of the slides.
I have it.
Okay, so you have to do it. So once you switch over, you can
The focus of what we're doing, the problems that we're solving are two. The first is, we all know that we're recycling now, but food waste is like the last pioneer, the last thing of how do you solve this. What was interesting when I started the research on this is where the food waste is happening. Here in developed countries, the food waste happens on the consumer side. Half of the food waste happens in our homes residentially. About 15% of the food waste that's in landfills comes from restaurants because there's a tremendous amount of waste there. Most restaurants, their garbage is between 60 to sometimes 100% food waste. The other problem that we're solving is the issue of food production, and namely fish is the focus. Fish is one of the most efficient ways to convert protein into human protein. The problem that's happening right now is that we are fishing our oceans, and because of the demand for farmed fish is so great, and most of these fish are carnivores. They don't really take readily to being fed corn and soybean and algae. Right now there's a lot of research trying to produce feeds for these animals, but really they're not evolved for it. And so we come to what my moonshot is. And let me see that I switch it here, sorry. Black soldier flies. Black soldier flies are a species of fly that occur around the world. They're unique in that they're not the fly that you see in your house flying around bugging you. The adults only live for 5 days and they don't have a mouth. Because of this biology, what happens is that the larva or their maggot grows tremendously and is an eating machine. They eat twice their weight a day. They have a rasping mouth, and they basically, you put something in front of them, they're going to eat it. The other thing is that the composition of their body, they have a great deal of oil, they have a great deal of protein, and there have been studies already done by the USDA that trout-fed black soldier fly larvae fed on manure, you could not tell the taste difference, or the growth rate was not that much different between those trout being fed fish meal. So it really is a breakthrough that potentially you could take something that we're chucking away, losing the value of it, turn it into a protein that then can go back into the food stream. What my company started in 2011, and the process was, the focus of what I wanted to do is to have a process that would be low cost. There are other companies that are pursuing this right now around the world. I think there's about 7, and they're all at different stages. It's still an emerging technology. No one has solved the problem completely yet. The other companies are focused on pre-consumer waste, which is, they're going after the big waste producers, factory that are processing food, food that's very homogeneous. My choice was to go with food waste because I felt it was a more thorny problem to solve. And the difference is, instead of having a facility in one spot where you get tons of the same stuff, you're picking up from everywhere. Obviously, like picking up from homes, picking up from restaurants. I also wanted to design a solution that would be cheap, because the other companies are all building automated systems, things that are going to cost millions of dollars once they deploy. My design is basically $1,000 for about an 8x8 area that will process a ton a day of food waste. So my goal for this is that by doing this, that you could have, instead of one huge monster spot where you're bringing in, 500 tons a day of food waste. And believe me, when you bring a lot of food waste together, it starts smelling just because the food has rotted in its different stages. It makes much more sense to have smaller local areas where the food waste can be processed where the food waste is happening. So you now reduce your transportation costs, and because the volume of the food waste isn't so large, you don't have the smell problem that you have with the big facilities. Here on the East Coast, we have right now 2 food waste recyclers. One is down in Delaware, and they use composting, and then the other one in New Jersey is a small composting facility, and that's it. That's it for the local area. There's I believe another one up in New York State. So there's a big demand for someone to take food waste, but there aren't that many places where you can take it, and part of it is the cost. The ways to recycle food waste right now are composting and biodigesters. They both have their problems. Composting takes a lot of land, and the actual income from the compost does not really offset the costs. It's a very marginal business. And the same thing with anaerobic digesters. They seem like they're a great solution, but it's a very specific bacteria that eats the food waste. And if you don't get the mix right, if the particle size isn't right, the vat will stop producing, and then you're left with a mess. And there was actually a company called Converted Organics that was very near here that failed and stunk up the whole neighborhood because of that. So my goal with our process is that we were starting small, and we were going to run pilots to basically test out how they ate, look at the conversion rates, all that kind of stuff. So where the company is, we actually started in an old Mack truck. Oh, did I get it? Yeah.
Sorry, we got it free.
I don't know what's happening here. Yeah, take it to the next slide, sorry. Whoops. Okay, I'll just keep going. We started in a old Mack truck building. It was in the middle of a town called Plainfield, surrounded by homes, and the part of the test was to see, would this be stinky? Would it be something that would cause a problem? And the answer was no. We also did pilots with Sustainable Morristown. We did a pilot with the Jersey City SID. And we also ran a pilot in the town of Dunellen and the town of Woodbridge. And the twist there is we used horses to pick up the food waste. And the reason for that is that I cost out, part of the problem with picking up food waste residentially is the cost of running the trucks. The trucks cost about, if you're going to run a big garbage truck, they cost $100 an hour to run. And a team of horses with 2 people on it costs about $45 an hour to run. And you can cover the same amount of territory because we think about a truck stop, start, stop, start. The horses can do the same thing. So we basically ran that test and it worked beautifully, and of course everybody loved it. And the participation rate in the pilot was 100%. The food waste was very clean, which is an important thing if you're going to be recycling food waste. So the final thing is, what is the vision? The vision is to have a way to recycle food waste and produce protein in a very small footprint in urban areas where the food waste happens, so you reduce your transportation costs. I envision eventually doing public-private partnerships. The part that I glossed over very quickly was that the value of the protein coming out of a ton of food waste is about $250. Right now in New Jersey, the cost to get rid of garbage, just garbage, runs between $70 to $110 a ton. So the idea is that eventually when this technology matures, then you could have towns actually making money from their garbage by doing that. And of course, then you have all the things that you're producing a sustainable protein for food production. And also the idea of doing a process that is manual instead of automated, you're providing jobs. So that's it. It actually can work in all parts of the U.S. The flies occur across the world, but they do their breeding in warm temperatures. So the mitigation of that is that that's why we did it inside, where we could keep them warm, we'd keep them from getting too hot. One of the things out of our testing is that we're going to combine this with a type of composting bore system and pull the heat off of the heap from the composting, and then use that to help keep the flies warm for the breeding. The larvae themselves produce a ton of heat. In the design that I have, we actually have to vent it because the heat gets so hot from their activity. Literally, it can heat an area, especially if you have long stacks of them, they'll keep the area warm. So there's efficiencies, and of course, that's part of what we're working on with our R&D. So yeah, it works. The biggest issue that I think is really facing everybody is there are still issues with understanding them as a species, keeping them, a large amount of them in one area, the diseases that they're susceptible to. You can have colony collapses. For some reason, the flies won't breed. There's still a lot of research in the science, so that's why we really are still in an R&D mode, even though we've had successful cycles of breeding and processing them. The other thing we found is that with the characterization of the food waste coming from different sources is different. Food waste from residences has a lot more meat in it, which the larva will eat, where if it comes from a restaurant, it tends to be more bread, more fruits and vegetables, leavings that have a lot of cellulose. And the larva can't eat cellulose. Like if you give them a lettuce leaf, they'll eat all the soft bits and leave the tracery. But what's really cool, if you throw a can in there with filled with say a tuna fish can with stuff in it, they clean it out like it's been washed. They crawl in there and just eat it, So they're very, very voracious, and they smell the food, and that's what attracts them. They don't have eyes when they're grubs. So that was part of it. It was showing that it can work everywhere. There's 2 facilities now, one up in Canada and one in Ohio, and they have tough winters. Yeah.
I understand the collection of the food waste and taking it to the small centers to process. I didn't hear a lot, I don't think, on the protein that's created and how that then is efficiently transported back to the marketplace, or who buys that, or tell me a little more about the protein side of this business model.
Right. What I'm envisioning is that the breeding of the flies is the tough part. Feeding the food waste to the larvae is very easy. So what I envision is you have a central hub where the processing of the larvae into the protein and the breeding of the flies would happen, and then you'd have your satellite areas where the actual feeding of the food waste to the larvae could happen, because when they hatch out, they're teeny tiny, so they're very easy to ship. They're very tolerant to cold. Heat is the biggest issue with them. The processing of them into protein, actually, you can cold press them, you can cook them. It's basically like any meat rendering that happens here in the United States. And in fact, what part of getting prepared for that portion, I was talking to actual rendering plants to use smaller equipment that people didn't want anymore to do that. Cooking it down, you extract the oil out, you put it in a centrifuge. So what you end up with is a dry cake of the actual protein, and then the oil is separate, which, by the way, the oil actually has been tested. It can be used for biofuel out of their bodies. So, but it might have more value as a nutrition additive. The other thing with the larvae that's really interesting, whatever you feed them, that's what their body's made up of. So if you give them a ton of bread, they're going to have a lot more like calcium in them, like giving them grains. Where if you fed them nothing but fish guts, then they'd have all the omegas in their body that came out of the fish. So you can almost design a type of feed based on what you feed them, or the source of your food waste.
So I was thinking about the source of the food waste and how we're kind of used to getting recycling picked up. In my town, it's every other week. Do you foresee any issues with going to scale on that end? You can't collect every day.
No, what I think will happen is we ran pilots with some commercial restaurants and some people like that, and what we found by working with them in our pilot is that they could reduce their actual garbage. Like once you take out the cans and the cardboard, those can be collected twice a month. You pick the food waste up twice a week, it doesn't get too smelly, and then the other garbage can be picked up once a month because it doesn't smell. I mean, what's in our garbage is the food waste. And actually, that's one of the issues with garbage trucks, is garbage trucks were designed to, when they squish down, the expectation is that you would have things like cardboard and paper that would absorb the liquids from the food waste. So that's why garbage trucks are not a solution for picking up just food waste, because when you squish it, all that liquid comes out and it's a stinky mess. Our solution is we gave companies a 32-gallon brute container, and they put their food waste in there. And we actually ran a test. You could leave food waste in there for a month. In the middle of summer, we did this, and you can't smell it. Because once that lid's on there, it goes anaerobic, and you don't smell it. But, of course, we were picking up twice a week. And usually the worst things that came out of it was that we found mice in there, that would get in there somehow.
Next question.
So I have like 46 questions. I'll keep it to one simple one. So what happens when the larvae mature?
That's when you harvest them. The whole life cycle is like any insect. They get laid as eggs. If you give them perfect conditions, in 2 weeks they're fully grown. They're almost an inch long. And at that point, that's when you harvest them and turn them into the food. When you're to scale, probably you can keep 10% to the side for your breeding stock. And I envision eventually you'd want to bring in wild genetics to keep your genetics up and running, because it's going to be a closed system. But basically.
So a follow-up. Sorry, 1.5 questions. So so you're harvesting the larvae, and then are they also producing waste?
Yeah, that's what the compost in this, I don't know if you can see the slide, they do produce a poop, and what they do is that the food waste you give them, if there's a lot of cellulose, the poop mixes with that and they churn. Like their whole thing is like, if you look at a heap of it, it's that kind of horror movie if you see everything moving around. Well, they churn it around and it turns black, and actually you end up with a really high quality compost. What we were figuring the next step is that we would take that and then put that in a standard composting system, like a standard like heap system, and then it would get cooked to the degrees that you need for composting. The other reason for using the oh, okay, all right.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please give her a hand.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, thank you.
So we have a lot to live up to now. So the next presenter we have is a friend of mine I consider, Mark Annette. He's a brilliant guy, entrepreneur. He has a BS in physics and psychology, and also an MS in biomedical engineering. Serial entrepreneur, he's been involved in a variety of interesting things, from spinal implants to neurologic stimulators and heart pumps. So with that introduction, Mark Annette, welcome.
Hi, my name is Mark Annett, and my moonshot is a gravitational theory of quantum mechanics, otherwise known as the theory of everything. So what's the problem? There are actually two theories out there. There's general relativity, which deals with gravity, and there's quantum mechanics, which deals with probability. Einstein spent the initial part of his life trying to disprove quantum mechanics. He's famous for saying God does not play dice. Once he finally accepted the theory of quantum mechanics, he spent the rest of his life trying to reconcile them unsuccessfully. It's the ultimate scientific search. It's the thing like Stephen Hawking has dedicated his life to. We spend billions of dollars in research in this area. Most of you probably are familiar with the Big Bang Theory, but not all of you know that there's problems with it. One of the problems is, why is the universe so uniform in terms of the microwave background radiation? Another, and this is a recent one, is the universe is not only expanding, but it's accelerating. It's getting bigger, faster, and faster. Dark matter, dark energy was proposed as a solution to this. The problem with these theories is the equations say that it should be 10 to the 121st power bigger than what we potentially observe. So there's two potential things. Either dark matter, dark energy doesn't exist, or we don't understand gravity. And that is actually the solution that I'm proposing. Einstein said that his greatest blunder was the introduction of a cosmological constant in order to produce a static universe. The cosmological constant was a new kind of energy inherent in space-time itself, and it's evenly spread out throughout the whole universe. He abandoned it when it was discovered that the universe was expanding. However, dark energy was an attempt to reintroduce it to overcome the fact that the universe is accelerating. So what will it mean if I'm correct? It'll mean that it'll usher in a new age of scientific discovery. And it'll revolutionize industries, especially the semiconductor industry, which is so based on quantum mechanics. However, my real hope is to inspire a next generation of girls and boys to be audacious, to reach for that moonshot, and to eliminate from people's vocabulary the phrase, "You're no Einstein," because this theory was there for Einstein, and he missed it. So what is my moonshot? My moonshot is the universe is expanding as a spherical shell of antiparticles at the speed of light. And a spherical shell has some really interesting properties. No matter where you are within the shell exerts no gravitational force. And you can see by symmetry, the top half and the bottom half won't exert a force. It's a little harder left to right, but believe me, the math is in any freshman physics book. The right, it's closer to the part of the shell, but there's more shell on the other side. So it doesn't exert any net gravitational force. However, everything in the shell feels the shell. It knows it's there, and it feels it as a gravitational potential energy, which is proportional to 1 over the radius of the shell. So as the shell grows, the gravitational potential energy of all matter within the shell has to decrease its energy. And it decreases it by emitting a photon. That is what we know as black body radiation. So right now, gravity and quantum mechanics at this point have just been unified. And it's because of the expansion of the shell causes everything. It produces the quantum effect because instantly all matter inside the universe must be undergoing changes in their energy. The changes early on were extremely great. And as time goes on, the changes in energy get smaller and smaller to what we observe today. However, the volume of the universe has the opposite effect. Initially, the changes in volume were incredibly small. But as time goes on, you can see that the volume is accelerating. So what we have is we have a new kind of energy inherent in space-time itself, evenly distributed throughout the whole universe, which is Einstein's cosmological constant. I said earlier that the shell is made up of antiparticles. I like this part because it makes it beautiful, but for the antiparticles, gravity is repulsive, which if you do a Google search on repulsive gravity, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of current physicists, high-end physicists, who are actually proposing anti-gravity as the solution to why the universe is expanding. And the reason for this is for the universe to obey both quantum mechanics and relativity, it must obey a principle called CPT, which says if you take all of the antimatter in the universe and replace it, all of the matter in the universe and replace it with antimatter and reverse direction of time, the universe has to behave the same. So this is our universe. We have a direction of time from yesterday to today to tomorrow, and we see that the asteroid is approaching. If gravity is attractive for antimatter and the direction of time is the same, then the asteroid goes the same, but this violates CPT because my direction of time is the same. If I reverse the direction of time, what happens is the asteroid moves away. So we don't have the same universe. It's only if gravity is repulsive and time is reversed that we experience the same thing and CPT is met. So our universe is expanding as a spherical shell due to the repulsive force of gravity, and as it expands, photons are emitted. Not only does this conceptually make sense, but the math is there. There's a paper by Hadukovic, who's one of the lead physicists at CERN. His paper is related to a static shell of the universe, but it really supports the theory in terms of the math of his paper. What I've done so far in terms of expanding this is I've actually taken these concepts and rolled them down into the atom. And using some research by Poole back in 1932, I'm actually able to predict 50% of the known subshell filling anomalies, which if anyone asks, I can go into that. But however, I'm really excited to report a brand new concept. When I was preparing this presentation, I realized that the shell is not only expanding, but it's likely rotating. And if it's rotating, then it likely has poles. And when I did this, I was like, well, if there's a magnetic field, is there any evidence? And sure enough, in 2010, Ando and Kosenko found primordial magnetic fields may permeate the universe. So I was really excited to find that pairing. So what I hope is to inspire a next generation of girls and boys to be audacious but not arrogant, to reach for that moonshot, to realize that they can be the next Einstein, the next Newton, Galileo, because the world of STEM has potentially just been opened up before them, and it's theirs for the taking. So I thank you, the committee, for allowing me to present my moonshot, and Google for allowing this opportunity.
So what are you trying to do? I understand you're doing research, you're doing some modeling around this, a lot of math. You're clearly way smarter than I am. What is it that you need to move forward?
Well, I'm approaching this really, to be honest with you, because I'm a patent agent among other things. I'm really a philosopher in terms of my approach to this. So let me just go to this slide. One of the things that I would like to share going forward is my process for the creative process that I went through so that we can understand. And there's some really good research by Yuri Alon, who's a physicist and talks about the creative process and going from here to there. I think that is what I would like to share, as well as get this out there so that people who are smarter than me in terms of doing the math. I was just lucky to be able to put this together. Okay, I was lucky to solve the problem that it came to me. But there's a lot of people that will be able to advance science forward now.
So in a sense, you're trying to get the word out that you've got some answers here.
Yeah.
And okay. So I think we can help with that, right?
Okay. What the difference is that my approach is everyone is trying to come up with a quantum theory of gravity. I did the reverse. I found the gravitational theory of quantum, and quantum is actually a very special case in terms of this. So that's why I was able to do it. I was looking the other direction than everybody else. The evidence that the shell is made out of antiparticles, besides the fact that it works really nicely because gravity is repulsive and making the shell grow, so that's kind of an automatic engine in terms of this. But one of the problems that we have with our universe model right now is there is no antiparticles around. And the question is, where are they? I've stuck them in the shell. That's where they are. Okay? I actually have some theories going forward in terms of why antimatter is actually dissipated here in our universe. But to the answer to the question of what potential impact does it have to everyone, I will really point to the semiconductor industry, which is based on quantum mechanics. And they use it very successfully, but have no idea why it works. So having an idea of why it works should lead to a new revolution. Beyond that, I can't do any more.
How are you doing on time?
Yep.
Just
So does this mean that you can predict the thickness of the shell at a moment in time?
I would prefer you to the paper by Hadukovich, where he actually believes that the thickness of the shell is based on a pion, is the thickness of a pion, which is a subatomic particle.
I want to thank you for, this one's here, it's dead. I want to thank you for sharing with us. I thought actually you explained this incredibly accessible. I'm not a particle physicist, but I kind of followed what you were saying. And I think the thought process you're talking about, lateral thinking and approaching things differently, is fundamental to what everyone is doing here. Practical applications will probably be military and probably be beyond the ken of a lot of people here. But it's fascinating. And it'll be great to see if this sort of gets adopted and is considered the latest thought process and advancement in unifying physics.
Thanks.
Our next presenter, thank you for stopping everyone, Mark, we appreciate it. Our next presenter is Richard Morris. He's the CEO of Pharmacy. And he has a BS from Cornell University and a PhD in biochemistry from the University of California. So with that, Richard, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting and giving Pharmacy the opportunity to speak this evening. Okay. Our moonshot is to create a tool that will allow the world to benefit from all of the advances in genetics and molecular biology that have occurred over the last 40 years. The implications of what we are doing, we believe, are extremely profound. Everybody has probably heard that it's relatively easy and inexpensive to sequence, or what we say, read DNA. The price of doing a human genome is now down to about $1,000 per person. This is going to create a lot of opportunities in diagnostics, therapeutics, and things like that. However, less attention has been paid to lowering the cost of synthesizing DNA or writing DNA, that is, creating DNA de novo. The cost of doing this has actually been stuck for the last few years, and it's not following the typical Moore's law type of behavior that has occurred with DNA sequencing. We've come up with a design that we are confident will allow us to rapidly and inexpensively synthesize large libraries of DNA. It takes advantage of inventions that I'm going to describe to you tonight, plus the enormous increase in computing power that has occurred in the last few years. Just as a reminder for those of you that are less biologically inclined, the human genome has about 3 billion individual letters or base pairs. So in this room, there are probably about 1 trillion letters. And it took 12 years to sequence, to do the initial sequence. Not much later, the mouse genome, which is about the same size as the human genome, took less than a week. So that gives you an idea of the pace of technology. So to provide the similar economies of scale that are used in DNA sequencing for DNA synthesis, we're taking advantage of an amazing device which has been invented here in New Jersey called a P-chip. And they're very small. I brought them with me to show people if they are interested. The P-chips are extremely small, and what they've done at the University of Bristol is they've actually glued one onto every single ant in a hive. And they can watch the social behavior of ants and follow their behavior with this P-chip. Okay, so as they go in and out of hive, they can stress the hives and do all sorts of things like that. It's the first time in history that teaching outside of the human race has been demonstrated between two ants. They call it tandem running, where if you destroy their nest and you give them a good nest and a bad nest, they eventually figure out which the good nest is by teaching each other, by rubbing their antennae together. And using the P-chips, we're able to track and trace every ant as it goes in and out of the hive. The P-chip itself, and I'll show one here, is a semiconductor device. They're made in the same, oops, sorry about that. They're made in the same foundries that Apple and Dell use. The dimension is 0.5 millimeter. These are the large ones. And it's resistant to just about any kind of a challenge. You can freeze them in liquid nitrogen. You can autoclave them thousands of times. You can heat them up to 500 degrees on a soldering iron, and they will still continue to function. They're basically like little rocks. The way it works is that when the P-chip is illuminated with a laser beam, it transmits a unique serial number which is stored on the chip. Okay? No two have the same ID number. We control that. We also know how to attach chemicals to the surface of this chip. And on it, we can do things like grow synthetic strands of DNA. The P-chip itself is great to tag and track things or to see if something's authentic. They have great use in the pharmaceutical industry to prevent counterfeiting. And we have lots of projects with them. We use them to inject them into mice, like vehicle ID numbers for them. We embed them in plastic or glass. We can attach it to just about anything that's living or not. Besides the ants, they've been used for pioneering studies in sudden hive collapse syndrome. There's some very nice video clips available at the University of Illinois website. So the P-chip itself integrates a lot of the latest technology around. They're completely different than other types of IDs like barcodes. You might have heard about RFID and things like that. We project that, well, they're much smaller and cheaper to make. We project that the P-chips will eventually be linked together, millions or billions of objects through the internet. In terms of the biological applications, we have a whole suite of things that we do with multiplex assays, which I don't have time to go into, but it involves doing advanced diagnostics. But in this particular case, we realized that if we added high-speed sorting, we could do something called sequence-directed combinatorial chemistry. And what this is, combinatorial chemistry is taking a basic block, having lots of different possible things to attach to it, making every possible permutation. That's kind of what DNA is. In fact, in the early 1930s, when DNA was first discovered, people didn't think it could be used for the cells for information because there were only 4 different bases. They didn't realize how powerful it was. So what this means is that combining combinatorial chemistry with our P-chip and sequence-directed sequencing, we can make a genome in a single day. Okay, as long as we know that it's done. And here's how we do it. There are 2 key elements, a P-chip and a sorter. The P-chip will be reduced in size by 1,000-fold. That's easy to do today with the semiconductor techniques that are out there. And then we have a high-speed sorter. So what happens is we read the IDs based upon what the sequences are that we want. We sort them. we synthesize, then we pool. And this just keeps going around until you elongate the chain to what you want. You can do hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions together at the same time. The P chips at this size, 1,000th the size of the current ones which I have here, for an entire human genome will occupy about 1 milliliter of volume. How are people doing it now? Well, there are some other ways out there with regular synthesis and microarrays and stuff like that. They're very, very tedious. They take a long time, and there's lots of errors. So when we look at what all this means is, you know, you might ask the question, we're going to go down to the basement and make mammals. No. There are a whole bunch of fields out here where right now people cannot make the nucleic acid materials they need in large enough quantities because of the limitations of expense. We project that our technology will be 3 to 4 orders of magnitude cheaper than the two techniques I showed you on the previous slide. So our X, in the solving for X, is a P chip. We believe that we're going to have a lot of them, and it's, oh, what did I do there? So, yeah, let's just go to the last one. So we believe that the P chip is the variable. Each one that we produce is unique, and it will be part of a much larger equation that will be in the toolbox that scientists and engineers have to improve the quality of products that are being delivered to us. Okay, thank you. Yes, so for example, if you sequence a gene and you say, I want to make variations of that in an experiment and see which one has a higher efficiency of, let's say, making a biological oil or something like that, you can create many different permutations and slight variations of the gene, splice them into organisms, and then see which one is more efficient.
So you're making it very cheap to write, not just read?
Well, the reading we don't do. That's being done by DNA sequencers, correct.
Are you worried about the moral implications and, you know, can be summarized in, say, the, you know, gray goo problem?
Well, there are ethical considerations, of course, and that's probably the subject of a whole separate lecture. And I was very careful to talk about the fact that we're not talking about higher forms of life here. So far, you know, the most publicity that has gone into this has been the formation of the first synthetic yeast that was done a couple of years ago. I don't believe that this will get to the point of a synthetic organism. I think what it is, its probably eventual targets are specific genes in chemical pathways that will be used for industrial production and things like that. It also turns out it's a very good way to design custom vaccines.
I think you mentioned up front that the current cost for sequencing the human genome is around $1,000. What do you see the P chip in this technology getting that cost to in the foreseeable future? Well,
we're not sequencing again, we're synthesizing. Right now it costs about 10 cents a base, which means a letter, to synthesize, to add a base to DNA. We think it will be 3 to 4 orders of magnitude less than that, so that's about 1/100 of a cent.
So will this have an impact in customized medicine for each of us?
Absolutely. In other words, one of the visions, and this is not my vision, this is Craig Venter, who's the guy who's responsible for the Human Genome Project, has an idea of eventually having some type of pathogen that has been discovered, figuring out what the vaccine is for it, and emailing the sequence to the DNA synthesizer in Africa and making the vaccine on site.
Yeah, and if I understood you correctly, you're building a library of these plug-in kind of modules that could go into the...
Yes, for an entire genome, you'd have about 10 million fragments. And then there are tricks that you have in molecular biology that allow you to assemble the fragments into a linear structure in a very predictable way. There isn't time to go into how that's done. That's called cloning. But that's exactly right. And in fact, one of the implications of this is that we can very inexpensively make large biorepositories of libraries with different snippets of DNA that can be combined in different manners, in different ways. And it's not just for any one thing. It could be in plants, it could be in industrial enzymes, it could be vaccines, things like that, animal husbandry.
Yeah, I was thinking about vaccines.
A lot of people don't realize that even today about 4 or 5% of our gross national product is done with modified organisms, not just the stuff you hear about plants. But it's actually a significant part of the economy, and it's growing very, very rapidly. The problem is that the genetic community has not had the tools. This could be to the genetic community what the PC was to the computer world 20, 25 years ago.
So, as specifically as possible, describe for us at what stage you are with the technology.
Okay, well, the P chips are done. Okay, I have some here. We have to reduce them to a smaller size. I already said that the semiconductor techniques are out there for the stuff. We've built sorters for the larger chips. They work fine. We have all the chemistry worked out. That's very well-known chemistry attaching it. It's just a question of taking all these different elements, most of which we have demonstrated at possibly a different scale, combining it and making sure the whole thing works.
What do you think the time horizon is for that work that you just described?
I'm going to refer to the inventor who's sitting here, Dr. Mandecki, to answer.
There will be different milestones, but the key milestone is 3 years.
That would be my guess, too. It's actually pretty close. Thank you.
Seth and Michael are going to come up here and present. And Michael is an associate professor at NJIT. He started his career on Wall Street, which is pretty impressive, and mentors currently at NJIT's Small Business Accelerator. He's also a member of the New York Angels, and what I found to be interesting is he loves his Ivies. He's a Yale bachelor and then PhD from Princeton. So shame on us public school guys, but we're very impressed and very thankful to have you. So with that, Michael, please come on up. And Seth, thank you for joining us.
So welcome to Smart City Newark. My name's Mike Ehrlich, and I'm from the NJIT School of Management and the New Jersey Innovation Institute. My colleague, Seth Weiner, is the Chief Information Officer for the City of Newark. Urban centers are growing worldwide. Current estimates for 2050 indicate that 2/3 of the world's population is going to be living in cities. That's up from just over 50% today. Now, yet, less than 2% of the Earth's surface area is actually occupied by cities, and cities are currently producing 70% of worldwide GDP. Our civil infrastructure is crumbling from the combined effects of age and neglect, and our urban centers are probably among the most impacted areas that are feeling this neglect. Our urban centers have seen deterioration of their tax bases, and due to flight from their middle class, and also deterioration and erosion of their industrial bases. We're at risk of creating urban slums if we cannot come up with a solution to create workable, livable environments in our urban centers. Traditional urban development is too slow, too expensive, and too resource intensive to be able to deal with the influx of urban dwellers that we're expecting in the near future. We're going to need to find new solutions to come up with to maintain our economic growth and standards of living in the face of increasing urban intensity. Access to data and the ability to manipulate that data is the key to get participation into the information economy. The United Nations Conference on Development and Trade and Development just came out with a study that indicated that cloud computing is a cornerstone technology for future social and economic development. Individuals need access to information and communication technology as an on-ramp to social and other capital that they can, and also as a way for them to get economic development and economic benefits for themselves. Society needs broad internet and ICT participation in order to enhance economic equality, social mobility, democracy, and economic growth. ICT access is also going to enable productivity growth that can actually follow a path of lower resource utilization. So how do we propose to address these issues? We propose to establish Newark, New Jersey as a smart city prototype. We plan to establish a free, citywide, gigabit Wi-Fi network and interoperable network of Internet of Things. The system is going to be owned by the City of Newark, but managed as an open system. So it's going to have a plug-and-play environment, making it easy for developers to prototype and deploy new technologies which will solve urban problems. Innovation, entrepreneurship, and commercialization of new technology is going to be fostered by a broad array of training, incubation, and business acceleration. New innovations are going to be able to scale and establish feasibility while creating new job opportunities for participants in the cities. Our urban centers have the potential to become the new frontier. Cities like Newark or Detroit can be transformed from old-style industrial centers into technological showcases. In Newark, we have a derelict network of antique fire call boxes like this one that lies on top of an underutilized world-class fiber optic network. It's the merger of these two components that actually gives us the backbone of Smart City Newark. The next phase of information technology, called the Internet of Things, or IoT by some, offers the promise of opening up the information economy to every person, and in the process creating cost-effective solutions to classic urban problems like traffic, transit, public safety, healthcare delivery, and infrastructure resiliency. So what's our radical solution? To better understand, let's see how we might interact with the Smart City Newark. Your Google Glass tells you it's 2:55 p.m., and you know that you have an appointment downtown in 15 minutes. That's no problem. A multimodal route optimization is going to tell you that the best way to get there is take a car to light rail straight downtown. You can call Uber, and a car is going to come in 1 minute. It's going to take you 1 minute and 45 seconds to get to the station. The next train is coming in 2 minutes. You're not going to have enough time to buy your ticket for the light rail. With automated light rail collection, you can just step onto the train. It's going to recognize who you are. It'll automatically deduct the fare directly from your account with New Jersey Transit. As you're passing by the Newark Bears Stadium, you hear a roar, and you say, "What's that?" "Ah, the NJIT baseball team just won with a walk-off home run." "Well, can I get tickets to that next game?" "Oh, it's going to be tonight." "Oh, great, I just scored some great tickets for a game at 7 p.m. tonight." Now, before I get off the train, I can get some timely reminders. I better buy those flowers. My anniversary's tomorrow. If I don't, I'm going to be in the doghouse, and I do, in fact, need a flu shot. With augmented reality, there's not really a question of which way to turn when you get off the train. You're going to get a walker map, you're going to get building notes, and in fact, you're going to get a weather update. And so, geez, I don't need an umbrella for today. Now, if I had chosen to take my own car downtown instead, it's okay. I could have pulled straight up in front of the building, hopped right out, and jumped into my meeting because my car has auto park. And now as I have auto park with real-time vacant spot identification, it'll find an empty spot and park itself. So I arrived at my destination, and I got a minute to spare. But oh no, I left the coffee maker on, and of course there's no one at home. But that's okay. With an internet-enabled appliance, I can just turn it off remotely. No big deal. So what did we just experience in 15 minutes of Smart City Newark? Well, we got personalized and optimized multimodal transportation, streaming entertainment, sales capture, personalized contextualized commerce, personal health alerts, augmented reality, parking management, and home safety. And those are just the ones we thought of. So how do we think about this smart city paradigm in a general way? We think that information is the new electricity. Before we had electric power, we worked, we played, we lived our lives. But after the introduction of electric power was introduced, we transformed manufacturing, transportation, communications, and consumer goods. We enhanced productivity, we increased real wages, life expectancy, and wealth. We believe we'll be able to do it again with the Internet of Things. We're going to get IT out of the office and back room, and we're going to make it a seamless part of our everyday lives. Broad participation in the smart city economy will enhance lives and renew our urban environments. Facing disruptive technology will create new innovative business models and jobs, and offer us a chance to improve sustainability and find a less resource-intensive path to the future. With your help, we can make Smart City Newark a model for the world. Are there any questions?
Free Wi-Fi network that everybody can access within the city. That's been dreamt up and people have tried to apply it elsewhere. Cable companies, telcos kind of say, we're in that business and you're a public utility undermining our profitability in a very anti-capitalist way. They kind of twist the regulators' arms to not allow this to happen anywhere in the US. Why do you think it can happen in New York?
So what we're looking at is not necessarily just free Wi-Fi for folks when they want, to access something on their smartphone. What we're really talking about is a plug-and-play environment where anyone in this room who wants to come up with a savvy sensor for noise or a way to detect if there's been a car accident or whatever it is, to have access, cheap, free access to both data and real estate in which to deploy that idea around an urban environment like Newark, New Jersey. Being one of the densest, largest cities in New Jersey, in the country. And so ultimately, the Wi-Fi component and connectivity, what we all experience on our laptops and cell phones is terrific, but at the core of it really is a free, low-cost or ultra low-cost data network that would enable people who want to develop these new tools for the future to kind of put them into action. And so from that angle, what we're looking to do is create a test bed in Newark, New Jersey, that can be deployed to other cities around the world.
In your demonstration part where you showed all the little apps, is anything in that scenario not being done today?
So Mike and I are limited in our own imagination, right? Mike and I can only find the ideas that are out there. We're just not that creative. But I think what we're really trying to get at here is technology for the other 99%. It's Hanukkah, it's Christmas coming up, everyone's going out to the Apple store, we're buying the $1,000 gadgets or whatever it is. And I think what we're really looking for is to enable a technological revolution for the urban lifestyle that is currently facing serious problems. Specifically, I'll give you an example. We have a lot of vacant properties in the city of Newark. And the ability to track whether someone's entering a vacant property unauthorized is about $700 to $900 per home, and that's too much money, right? Electronically, it's too much money. Why? Because a lot of the telecommunications infrastructure in the United States is just not geared to make this type of thing an ultra-cheap solution. And we can do that in Newark, New Jersey by democratizing who has access to levels of this type of data, and then perhaps with some different kind of bandwidth spins, get that communication and that last mile into the home and lower the cost of detecting a vacant property intrusion $50 to $100. That would really be something, and that would be something remarkable all over the country.
So I get why this is wonderful, and I get that it has all kinds of things on the consumer side, but I'm back to John's question and was really sitting here wondering, how are we going to pay for this? And I'm a huge proponent of Newark, have seen it try and get numerous times in my lifetime, really hope for the best. Kind of really just hoping for the best. How are we going to pay for this?
Well, McCarter English and Verizon, as residents of Newark, no. This is a good question. I think the reason why Mike and I are both up here, Mike being from NJIT and NJII, and myself being from the city, we have some really powerful corporate residents who are super interested in this, ranging from Panasonic to Prudential to Audible.com, who is featured in the puzzle here. And so I don't think it's a problem necessarily of a pure cost. I think for a very limited investment pool of $1 million to $3 million in 6 months, we could have our first round of 10 to 50 sensors set up around the city that would enable the Google developers group to say, well, okay, what cool devices do we want to try and plug in at 50 or 10 free sites around the city? What can we detect? What can we learn? So I don't think it's really a problem of capital, to be perfectly honest. I think it's a problem of imagination and collaboration. I think there's plenty of capital in the city, and God willing, if we win this competition, we'll have a little bit more.
Yeah, sorry, that might be the start of the answer to my question, which is, what kind of analysis have you done on the stresses that this will place? You know, like you, I understand the benefits on the consumer side, and I can see how it would work because I live in Tucson, Arizona, and I can actually change the thermostat of my house from my iPhone, right? I can turn the heat up or AC on or whatever. but what kind of stresses will it put on the supply side? You know, the kinds of, you know, hardware and software that you're talking about to serve that, you know, user side.
I think that when it comes to supply and bandwidth, Newark is very lucky. I'll start with the supply side first, then I'll go to the bandwidth. Supply from a networking perspective, I don't think this is going to be a tremendous challenge. There's folks much smarter than me with companies much larger than we're representing, who have 100 gig routers and this kind of thing and 10 gig routers. So I think we're really in good position. But I think what makes Newark really important from a test bed perspective, and the gentleman from Verizon can attest to this as well, is that Newark has kind of world-class infrastructure. We have a really fine port that served the city for 200 years, followed by the greatest railway system, and the Pennsylvania Railroad coming through, and the telegraph and the telephone and the internet. And so as a result, Newark is rich in these internet resources, as much so as like as New York City and Lower Manhattan. But the beauty of Newark compared to Lower Manhattan and trying to tap into this is the street opening permits in New York are going to be much harder. And if you look at the way New York is going with their recent announcement around the payphones and kind of this type of model, you'll see it's very different. It's not technology for the 99%, all right? The New York City model is a great idea, and it's about free Wi-Fi and giving it to one developer and letting that one operator kind of sell the advertising to feed into the network. It's fundamentally not what we're talking about. What we're really talking about is a collaboration of infrastructure and brains and putting those things out there for this room to come up with the great kind of solutions that are going to sit on top of that platform. So it's more city as a platform rather than city as a solution.
And what makes this solution really unique is that it's an open architecture. It's not really owned by anybody. Anybody can come up with an idea. Small entrepreneurs can come up with an idea for an internet appliance, slap it onto one of these locations, and basically suddenly be generating data and creating a business opportunity.
To be very specific, power over Ethernet, right? If you've got an Ethernet jack, you're good to go.
Yeah.
We'll give you, if you got an Ethernet jack, you got a 1 gig feed to your sensor, and you got power, and you're good to go.
Then it's your imagination. Thank you, Mike and Seth.
Not least, we have Lou Elwell coming up. He's the CEO of Biosoil Enhancers. He's a serial entrepreneur. He was awarded the Entrepreneur of the Month through Entrepreneur Magazine, which is very impressive, and also has a degree in finance and management from the Wharton School. And we're happy to have him. So with that, Lou, please come on up.
My X is, how can we help the world feed itself? According to the Population Research Bureau, if we sat down the entire world at a dinner table tonight, we'd have to add another 228,000 plates. Tomorrow night, another 228,000 plates. No time off for weekends or holidays, keep adding another 228,000 plates. That's a lot of pizza. Now, that wouldn't be too bad if the farmland supply was increasing with the population. However, it's not. The EPA says that the U.S. is losing about 3,000 acres a day to development, and the United Nations has said that we're now at peak farmland, that we're now in an inexorable decline in the amount of land available. Even that wouldn't be too bad if the amount of crops per acre were increasing. However, you can see if for a decades-long increase in yield, we've now starting to flatten out. In fact, the one that's the most interesting there, if you can see it too clearly, by the way, I hope you don't mind, I'm using a green pointer and it's bigger because we're a green product and we make things bigger. But rice here at the bottom is the orange. The price of rice in China is 2 to 4 times the price of rice in the U.S., yet the yield is only 1 or 2% higher. So higher prices don't necessarily allow us to increase the yields. You can see the same phenomena with sugar prices in the U.S. So when you have increasing demand and a stable or decreasing supply of farmland, the best case, that leads to higher prices. Worst case, to shortages of food. Another word for shortages of food is famine. Fortunately, we have a solution. We call it Fertilizer 2.0. This is how fertilizer is currently made, which consumes about 14% of the world's natural gas supply and 1% of the world's electricity, a lot of energy. And we want to take a step backwards. Sometimes a step backwards is progress. We have copied what Mother Nature does. So this is also known as the Brown Revolution, rebuilding the soil, where we emphasize the biology, naturally occurring microbes in the soil, not the chemistry. I'll bet you that there's not more than 1 in 1,000 farmers that does a soil analysis on their soil for biology. Yet when they do a soil analysis, they all do chemistry. So we're focusing on the biology. So if there's one takeaway from this presentation, it's that microbes provide higher yield every field. The SumaGrow products, which is the name we call it, is simply concentrated Mother Nature. It's all naturally occurring microbes. There's nothing that's genetically modified. The OMRI, Organic Materials Review Institute, would call us organic, approved for all forms of organic production without limitation. It is not a compost tea. It is something that's constructed under laboratory conditions, and it works in harmony with existing farming methods, easy to apply, easy to store, less expensive than fertilizer. So here's some of our laboratory stuff. Again, you can see this is not an idea. It's not a concept. It's not vaporware. This is something that is actually in production. In fact, it's in commercial size production. These are 300-gallon tanks. We have a 25,000 square foot facility, and we are currently selling product. This is a farmer 4 years ago using our product. This is how his soil looks today. You can notice that it's structurally different. You can see the difference, and you can actually smell the difference. Good soil smells better because of that naturally occurring microbes. That change in the soil allows one thing, reduction in reduced compaction in the soil so that you don't see much standing water here, but all the fields around it, you can see standing water. And that water runs off, it takes fertilizer with it, causing pollution, dead zones, etc. Our water goes into the soil and stays there. That reduced compaction allows the roots to grow bigger. This is our soybean roots. This is what the roots look like with conventional fertilizer. Significant difference. They also go deeper, broader, accessing more water, more nutrients. So we end up with bigger crops. And I should say, not only is it not genetically modified, it's not nuclear powered. This is a sweet potato, bigger than a football. Cucumber, bigger than a dollar bill. If you know anything about soybeans, they typically come below the waist. Here's our soybeans, 5 feet tall. You might notice there's a few more green leaves around. Same farmer, same field, same weather, same seed, same everything. Conventional fertilizer, SumaGrow. Cotton. Again, cotton normally grows to below the waist. This is acres and acres of cotton. This is our cotton, 6 feet tall. It's been used in over 40 countries around the world. This is 10-foot tall corn in Honduras. Here's conventional fertilizer. You can notice that that's much shorter than over here. Look at his up to his knees, midway up to his elbow. That's orchids in the Dominican Republic. Okay, faster. Works on grasses, forestry, anything with a root that's grown in soil. Validated by numerous independent universities, PhDs, test facilities, farmer co-ops. We were named the Grand Award winner in the green category, Popular Science magazine. The last 2 years, the Inc. 500, the second and fourth fastest growing private manufacturer. This is a very interesting study. The American Academy of Microbiology came out with a report, How Microbes Can Feed the World. Obviously, that was their conclusion, the best and the brightest from around the world. They came up with a grand goal. They called it ambitious and gave it a catchy name, 20, 20, and 20. 20% increase in yield, 20% reduction in fertilizer in 20 years. We are doing the 20% increase in yield, 50% reduction in fertilizer minimum today. There's other benefits besides the yield increase, fertilizer reduction, reduce the need for irrigation water. We increase the nutrient levels. The food actually tastes better, higher Brix levels, bioremediate the soil and water, faster, higher germination rates, earlier maturation, and we sequester carbon. So since the analogy for this conference is the moonshot, this year is our leaving the rocket is leaving the pod, and 2015 is our year. A little bit of luck, a little bit of assistance. We think that we can change how and how much the world grows. Thank you. Sign-up sheet here. If anybody wants to give me an email address, we'll put you on our mailing list.
Free vegetables. So Sounds amazing. So how do you scale? How does this go from wherever those spots you were showing us to a much larger proportion of farmland?
We've done two things to scale rapidly. One is our marketing program, where we have a co-branded licensing agreement, SumaGrow inside. So we have numerous licensees that have their brand, ABC, XYZ, whatever, SumaGrow inside. Some specialize in organic only, some go after golf courses, some go after just the country of Vietnam. So they're doing the marketing. We stick to our core competency of manufacturing and R&D. The second thing on the manufacturing, we're using the Coca-Cola model. We'll make the secret syrup and have blending or bottling plants closer to the customers. We're looking to open up in 2015 in New Zealand and Panama.
So this is very interesting. There's a lot of technology interest in microbes and in your body as well as in the soil. Actually, this is the first one I've seen in the soil. It's very interesting. Kind of interested in your competition. Or is anybody else doing something similar?
Sure. First of all, thank you for posting on LinkedIn. That's how I found out about this conference. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, most people ask the competition question. They're thinking of other microbial or biological competitors. Frankly, that's not really our competition. Our competition is fertilizer companies. When we win, that's who loses. Other than in turf, I don't think we've come across another competitor that's selling a similar product. But the big boys are aware of this. The CEO of Monsanto was on record as saying that biologicals is the next major platform for agricultural yield increase. They just paid $300 million plus staff to a company in Europe called Novozymes in exchange for 50% of the profits of a product to be developed that doesn't do as much as what we do.
That's great. So you're ahead of the competition. How does your price compare with standard?
Our price is a fixed price per gallon, and it's 1 gallon per acre. Very highly concentrated, so that typically it's, I'll say 50% less than fertilizer, but corn uses a lot more fertilizer than soybeans, so on soybeans maybe it's 10 or 20% less than fertilizer. On corn, maybe it's 60, 80% less.
How does your product get consumed? I have a field, I put it on it, it's microbes, it's live. Do I ever need to do anything ever again afterwards?
Yes. I equate it to vitamins in the body, just like vitamin C. It's at its best when your body is totally saturated and the next tablet of vitamin C goes right through you. We are putting the maximum amount of microbes in the soil. Not just the quantity, but the proper balance of microbes, so that the microbes, for example, New Jersey will die off over the winter. Some of them will go into a spore-forming mode and hibernate in essence and come back in the spring, but not all of them. So we improve the soil. If you only use this once, you will get better results the following year, but if you want the optimum results, you have to keep using the product.
So what's your biggest challenge right now in terms of rolling out your product to a larger market? Well,
Money's always welcome, but honestly, the biggest thing is somewhat surprising is the regulatory environment. There's a lot of jurisdictions that don't know what to do with this. We're not fertilizer, we're not a chemical. Our export code is miscellaneous agriculture. So that I was in South America this past spring. I went to Chile, and they said, we have no regulations, so come on in. I went to Uruguay, and they said, we have no regulations, so we can't let you in. I have orders right now in 12 countries that are waiting for a piece of paper. Even in the U.S., there is absolutely idiotic regulations. We have to have 6 different labels just to sell within the U.S. And in one of the states, we had to certify that we're not a terrorist. I always wondered who checked the yes box. So regulatory approvals.
What's your manufacturing capacity right now? How many in acres? How many acres can you supply in a given month?
It would be about 85,000 acres per month. We are in the process of doubling that, so that by April we expect to be double that. We shipped this month probably 35,000 acres. Now, I'm using a gallon per acre, which is our standard. If it's very poor soil, you'd want to use 1.5 gallons. If you're growing organically with no other fertilizer, 2 gallons. If you have diseased or insect problems, you'd want to use 2 gallons, but at 1 gallon per acre, those are the numbers.
Do you have other questions?
Anybody else?
Yep. I just had one more. We're actually, if you read my bio, we're in the same business.
I got that, yes.
And what, have you made adjustments for different soils and different climates and different soil types? And
Yes and no, though the answer my wife hates. My partners and I have over 20 years experience in cultivating microbes, historically for waste bioremediation, specifically restaurant grease traps. Beef grease is different than chicken grease is different than restaurant oils, etc. So we have a polymicrobial formulation that, in layman's terms, has the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines. Whatever conditions they encounter, there's something in there to fight. So that we work in high pH, low pH, temperate weather, hot weather, sandy soil, clay soil. Again, 49 states and over 40 countries have used our product.
Cool. Very cool. So just so you have an idea of what's happening next, as everyone's kind of like, all right, well, that was great. We just saw these amazing ideas. So this is the first event that we held. So this is one of a few coming up, and Todd's going to highlight some of the future events. But from the east of the Mississippi, it's like this team you saw today are kind of cultivating ideas on behalf of the Google SoftwareX team. So it's very exciting. And what we're doing is taking some of the top moonshots that come out of this, a New York City and Boston event, and bringing them to this main amazing event. Just really going to be an epic opportunity to highlight their idea amongst a group of amazing scholars to help further the concepts, further the ideas, and bring this out to the masses. And with that, I'll let Todd highlight some of our upcoming events. Todd.
Yeah, so thank you again to everybody for coming out. This is an amazing turnout. Thank you to the pioneers, ridiculous, and panelists. You guys were unreal too. Yeah, so as Clark mentioned, this is the beginning. This is ground zero for this movement here that we have on the East Coast. We didn't have to do all this. Like when we got accepted by Google, what the charge was this here. This is the event that we had to do. That's at Rutgers. That's the main event. But what we're doing is again over here in Montclair State is the very first event. The next event, if you liked what you saw here. We're going to be at Google NYC at their Chelsea Market office. It's just across from the main Google office there. And then we will be up at the Grommet on January 12th. And again, that's up in Somerville, Massachusetts, just right near Cambridge. It'd be awesome if some of you went up there. Little road trip, that'd be cool. But check out Google. And there's another one that we didn't put out there yet. We just kind of inked this. It's Stevens Institute. So we're going to be at Stevens on January 15th. So that should be fun. The reason we added that was because there's been such an amazing influx of ideas, and we wanted to make sure that we gave a proper opportunity to all these people to present. We probably could have had 10 people here today, to be honest, but we don't want to keep you here till midnight. So yeah, so that's what's coming up. There's one little interactive thing I wanted to do with the crowd. As you saw before.
Not a picture of me with no beard. That's not what he was talking about.
Oh, jeez. Okay. With the what's your X? 1 second. Sorry. Jeez. Okay, there it is. All right. So I'm asking if everybody can just do a little crowd participation, little flash mob. Please do your best X right now. I'm going to take a couple photos. Everybody, come on, stand up. Come on, stand up, stand up. Yes.
Looks like the YMCA.
Get your arms as straight as possible, like opposite with the leg. There you go. It's harder than it seems at first. Oh, this is awesome. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, and that's basically it. Thank you for coming out. You know, we have some time to network.